So we're gonna take a seat in a second, just to let you guys know how this event's gonna go. Angie's gonna read a little passage from the Hate You Give. I'm gonna hit her up with some questions. Some will be serious, others will be really fun, and then we will turn to you guys. There will be a Beyonce portion of the event. No Tupac. I messed up in the Tupac business, but yeah. So, would you like to take a seat? I'm sorry if you can't see her, but she's here, I promise. They can't see me either. I mean, I guess that would be the gentlemanly thing to do, but. No, yeah, that's fine. I'm also loud in Puerto Rican, so this is.
Is this better?
This is way better.
I think that's a bit better, right? Hi, I'm Southern.
So do you want to read a passage from your wonderful book, which is a #1 New York Times bestseller? Speaking of 8-star reviews, which no one knew that you could even get that many.
I didn't know you could get that many. I didn't know there were that many.
Changing the meaning on why
I feel like they started making stars
yeah.
up. I like this book. I'm going to give it a star review. I'm going to say I have a literary journal.
Yeah.
Star review. But, okay, I will start with a passage. When I was 12, my parents had 2 talks with me. One was the usual birds and the bees. Well, I didn't really get the usual version. My mom, Lisa, is a registered nurse, and she told me what went where and what didn't need to go here, there, or any damn where. Back then, I doubted anything was going anywhere anyway. While all the other girls sprouted breasts between 6th and 7th grade, my chest was as flat as my back. The other talk was about what to do if a cop stopped me. Mama fussed and told Daddy I was too young for that. He argued that I wasn't too young to be arrested or shot. Star, you do whatever they tell you to do, he said. Keep your hands visible, don't make any sudden moves, only speak when they speak to you. I knew it must have been serious. Daddy has the biggest mouth of anybody I know. And if he said to be quiet, I needed to be quiet. I hope somebody had to talk with Khalil.
I love this book so much. You sent it my way last summer, and I was so obsessed. It was a book that I spent my time reading, but also just couldn't help racing through it through several passages. And I had no idea. I read it through an ebook, so I had no idea how massive this book actually is. I was just so obsessed with Star and the rest of her family, and just everything unfolding throughout the novel. And I just also I'm in love with your journey for this book. I mean, it's, tons of writers are often boasting about their MFAs in creative writing and the degree they got here. Can you speak a little bit about, let's go right back to the start before the Hate You Give was even had a nugget of inspiration. How young were you when you first started writing for the first time, and what kind of stories were you writing about?
Okay, I've been telling stories for as long as I can remember. I wasn't exactly writing, I was storytelling. My mom would read bedtime stories to me, and afterwards I would be like, okay, let me tell you my version of it. I'm doing already. And so it was like fan fiction at 6. But I actually wrote my first book when I was 6. It was Mickey's Space Adventure, and it had all of these awesome drawings, and my mom still has it. And I looked at it the other week, and I was like, dang, I could draw. I can't draw now.
You still stand by your artistic abilities at 6?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, that, not the writing. The writing was bad. But the drawings were amazing. I'm impressed. But I never thought that I could be a writer. I'm from Mississippi, and for the most part, the legendary authors from Mississippi, for instance, Faulkner, Eudora Welty, White, dead. Not like me. So I never met an author until I got to college. And it was when I decided to study creative writing. There was a school not too far from my house, 10 minutes away, that offered a creative writing program. And I felt like, yeah, that's meant to be. So it was in college that I realized I could actually do it, and I could actually be an author, because I met authors who looked like me. And I think that's so important, because it's funny now, I've been kind of giving that back, because at my Jackson launch party, which I'm ashamed to say it was not as big as this. Holy crap.
Squad up, New York.
But there was a group of middle schoolers, and they all write, and they were a part of a program. And their teacher brought them, she drove the bus herself. That's amazing, first of all. And they came up to me afterwards and they were like, I didn't know I could be an author until I met you, because you look like me and you're right from around here. So the fact that somebody did it for me when I was in college, and now I'm doing it for those kids, hopefully they can become writers and learn that they can do it even sooner than I did. So I feel very blessed to be able to do that.
No, and that's one of the things that, I mean, I'm so happy for the success of this book, for you especially, and just knowing that, I mean, this is New York City, home to publishers and agencies, and everyone is seeing this turnout right now, and they're seeing the demand for stories that we haven't been given over the past few years. Can we actually now shift a little bit towards Thug? I'd love to know when you first came up with this idea, because originally it was a short story, right?
Yeah, I was a senior in college. It was a part of my senior project. It was in 2010, 2011, after the shooting death of Oscar Grant. He was a young man in Oakland, California. The movie Fruitvale Station was made about the last day of his life. And at the time, there was a lot of unrest in Oakland. And I was hearing two different conversations about Oscar. At home, he was one of us. I knew Oscar, I saw Oscar every single day. But at school in conservative Mississippi, at a mostly white school, I heard conversations that he deserved it. And instead of burning every trash can on campus, starting my own little revolution, I wrote. So I worked on a short story, and it honestly started out about polio, because I was seeing so many conversations about Oscar, and more so about what he had done in his past than about what was done to him. And I wanted to show the human side of somebody in a situation like Oscar, because so often young black men, when they have a record, they're looked at as criminals first, humans second. And I wanted to show the human side, and then I wanted to show it from Star's perspective eventually, because so often young black girls get overlooked and stuff like this. They're affected by it too. You know, when they see someone die, in these cases, for instance, Trayvon Martin, he had a friend, Rachel Gentile. She was a big inspiration for the character of Star, because I remember when Rachel basically testified on Trayvon's behalf, there was more talk about how Rachel presented herself than there was about what Rachel was actually saying.
Presented in which way?
Well, here's the thing, like Rachel, I saw like clips of it when she was in court. Like she was like one of the prosecutors said something to her and she went, you know, like, what the hell you just said to me? You know? And like she couldn't control her face. She had like, you know, it's okay. And like she may have used slang terms, or she was like, or I'm not gonna say blah blah blah. I ain't no snitch, you know. And she say stuff like that. And people were more focused on how she was presenting herself and how she was saying things instead of what she was saying. And it was her, and then it was seeing black girls getting slammed onto the floor in their classrooms by police officers because they didn't get up when they said they wanted them to get up. And it's knowing that black girls are affected by this just as much. I wanted to present it from Star's perspective because I felt like it was overlooked so often. So it was a combination of all of that that really inspired me to write the short story and then to write the novel.
Something I also really love about your novel, you just kind of touched on it, was the way that you do cover all these angles and perspectives, particularly in the character of her uncle, the cop. Like, can you explain why you felt that was an important addition to the narrative?
I have law enforcement in my family. One in particular, his name was William Gladney, and if you go to Jackson and you say the name William Gladney to anybody on the street, they will know who you're talking about. He's dead now, but he was part of the drug force in Jackson, and he was this big, tall, 6 foot something, 600-pound dude. And he was known because when they would do drug busts, instead of using a thing to knock the door down, he would kick it down with his foot. But he was known for being like this no-nonsense cop. But I remember, even though he was a police officer, he once pulled me aside when I was 12 and had a conversation with me like Star's parents had with her. And this is a black cop telling me, don't make any sudden moves, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, only speak when spoken to. And it was being told that by a cop that struck me. So I wanted to write Carlos because so often, so many of my family members have said, the ones who are in law enforcement have told me, well, in the uniform, I'm seen as a sellout by some folks. Outside of the uniform, I'm a suspect. And that's a struggle that we don't see or hear a lot about. And I thought that I wanted to show that through Carlos, if nothing else, and give that personal side of it. Because it's easy to say, well, blue lives matter, but when we're talking about black blue lives, do they matter?
Mic drop. Writers, especially in the cases of debut novels, they tend to pull a lot from their lives. Would you say the same for Star? Is she?
You trying to get in my business?
I'm definitely all these people here. We've been doing something.
Well, of course, I don't know if they can see him, but the sneaker love is definitely from me. I want to show them off. I'm like proud of these things.
12 of you saw it.
But no, the sneaker thing. But being two different people in two different worlds is definitely something that I identify with, because going to a mostly white college in conservative Mississippi, I always fought against the stereotype of being the black girl from the hood, or the angry black girl, or the yellow black girl. And I always had to make sure that I presented myself in a way that no one thought I was only there because of affirmative action. And I was the first black student to graduate from my creative writing program. Which is great, but that also meant that, and I'm going to say the word, that meant that I was the official representative of the Negro race. Like if slavery is brought up in discussions, all of a sudden people are looking at me. Like, I was there. I wasn't there. What's my perspective on it? What's your perspective on it? I wasn't there either. But, no, that's definitely something I identify with Star. And then having a strong family foundation. I didn't have my dad in the house, but I had my mom and my grandmother. And they were my two-parent household, and they were my foundation. And so I took little bits of them in creating Star's family, creating her parents. So I definitely identify with her on that. I just wish I was more outspoken like Star was. At 16, I really wish that I knew that my voice mattered, because I didn't. So that's one thing I wish I was like Star.
But you have now also produced the book that is the essence of like your voice matters, and I mean literally there's so many powerful scenes in this book, especially toward the end, that I will not spoil for those of you who are too slow. This book's been out for 2 weeks now. I have a life and I read your book. But also just a quick note, while we're talking about your family, I'm obsessed with your mom.
No, don't tell her that. Please do not make her head big. It's a fan club now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to run it, but like, no, I mean, you had an Instagram story, which, by the way, if you're not following Angie on Instagram, you should, because she has a Batgirl onesie right now, and she literally talks in Batgirl voice, and it's amazing. So, but yeah, there was a really sweet moment of your mom seeing the hate you give in Barnes & Noble for the first time, right? And I'm just like so happy for you. That was just there was no question there. I'm just like happy. But yeah, can you speak a little bit about when you felt visible in your childhood? Like, was it through movies? Was it through music? Was it through like films or something, or books? I mean,
for me, and I feel like I'm going to call the publishing industry out on this, and I apologize now to any publishing professionals, but you failed me as a child, because I did not see myself in books enough. I saw myself in hip hop. Tupac Shakur spoke to me. Nas spoke to me. They told the stories where I saw myself, and they told the stories where I saw my neighborhood and my community, and they spoke to what I was going through more than books did. And you know, I couldn't pick up maybe Judy Blume and see me. You know, I could listen to Tupac, keep your head up, and he's talking about what I'm going through. So that's where I saw myself. And I don't think we give hip hop enough credit for giving kids that representation. That's why so many of them flock to it. You know, that's why so many black kids, that's their culture, because they're speaking to them when we don't as authors. So I saw myself through that. And there were, of course, black movies, black television, but there weren't enough black girl books, you know? So it was definitely hip hop, and yeah, I had a lot of favorite artists who really spoke to me, like TLC. I wished I was a fourth member. You know, so it was music for me. Unfortunately, I loved books, but I didn't see myself in them.
Are there any books that are out now that you sort of swear by? Now that there are, you know, the selection has grown.
Absolutely.
Thankfully.
Well, there was one book, I will say there was one book that really spoke to me, Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. About a black girl in Mississippi, even though it was in the past, it spoke to me. But right now, there are like a couple of them. I would definitely recommend Midnight Without a Moon by Linda Williams Jackson. Yes. It's set in Mississippi in 1955, and it takes place after the death of Emmett Till. Anything by Jacqueline Woodson. I don't know if she's here. No, here's the thing. I hate to say it, I kind of hope she's not because I'll fangirl. Like, she sent me a message the other day. It took me forever to respond. She sent me a message earlier and I haven't responded yet because I'm so conscious of it. No, I can't do this. But, anything by Co Booth. I'm not saying the book is called anything. Her works, like, she specifically has this book called Kendra, which is so underrated. But that book right there is phenomenal. And let's see. I need some. I'm trying to remember.
I mean, you've hit on.
Oh, yeah.
No, you can give me one. That would have been fine. You know?
Oh, my bad. Ooh, my bad.
No, I'm just saying, no pressure. So I actually, some of my favorite reviews that I've seen for your book are when readers admit that they're uncomfortable reading it. And I mean, for me, like that's great because like at least they're open to it. You know, they're willing to engage with the text in a way that others would just completely shrug off and dismiss. Is there anyone that, if you could force someone to read your book? There's probably a very obvious answer. But I don't speak on anyone's behalf. So, is there someone that you would slide to get along?
Tiny orange hand man. And the governor of Mississippi.
Yo, can Harper just like send like a shipment of like books to the White House?
No, because then he'd probably target me. Please don't. Actually, no, it's probably above his reading level. It would be a waste. Shade.
Is there? Love it. Is there anyone in your, and you don't have to answer, is there anyone in your personal life that you would probably give a copy to?
There's this one girl from college.
Haley?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You maybe want to explain who Haley is for those who are 2 weeks behind on reading this book.
Haley is a white chick who makes a lot of microaggressions and does not apologize for them. We'll just say it like that. She gets what's coming to her. But no, there was this one girl who was a lot like Haley for me at college. And I remember this one incident. We were in the car, and I'm going to admit it, we were listening to the Jonas Brothers. I still got a crush on Joe.
Nick Jonas kind of guy.
Nick is cute now, but back then Nick was like the little brother, and I felt like a pervert girl. But no, Joe is still cute. But we were listening to the Jonas Brothers, and we were in the car, and we were heading towards the bridge that separated my part of town from this part of town where the school was. And the Haley of the group goes, she stops the car, and she's like, oh my God, no, we cannot go over there. That's where all the criminals live. Oh. Now, you know, I had a moment. It was like, pause in my head. And, can I curse? In my head, I went, this bitch. But out loud. But I could not be the angry black girl. So out loud, I just said, well, that's where I live. And all you heard was Joe Jonas singing about SOS. That's it. So I would definitely give her the book, because that conversation, after they dropped me off, well, they didn't drop me off at home. They dropped me off at my car, and I drove myself home. After that, I blasted Tupac the whole way home, and I worked on the short story that later became The Hate You Give. So that's how I turned my
What would you say to anyone in the audience who has like the Haleys in their lives? Like, how could you? What could you say to them that will help them encourage the Haleys to pick up The Hate You Give or any other book that is representing a marginalized community that they just have such stereotypical discriminations against?
First, I would tell them, as we say in the South, bless your heart. Second, I would tell them to sneak it to them, because people like that, they don't like to confront their mistakes. They don't like to confront their prejudices or their racism. And that's what we see with Haley. She doesn't want to confront it. She doesn't want to apologize for it. So I think you would have to have a come to Jesus moment with that person. You know, you would really have to, and it's like, hey, read this. If you see something you identify with, let me know. And go from there. That's the only way I would probably go about it, if I'm completely honest.
No, well fun. Okay, I want to shift to a little bit of a lighter note. What were you doing when you found out you debuted #1 on the New York Times bestseller list?
I was refreshing my email and waiting for a text from my agent, Brooks, who's somewhere in here. Get back there. Thank you, Brooks. I was waiting for the text, and so I was just sitting around. I was playing NBA 2K17, whipping some butt, trying to distract myself. And he sends me the text, and I fall to the floor. I cried, and my mom was not there because, of course, like if you've ever noticed, like anytime someone's like, I hit #1 in New York Times on Twitter, they're like, I can't get my mom on the phone. I don't know what it is in the universe, but moms are not available when this dude hits. So mine was gone, and she was like maybe 15 minutes away. So I called her and I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm driving. Why? I said, I may need you to pull over to the side of the road. She said, who died? I said, nobody. She said, okay, why? What? And I said, it hit #1. All I heard was, ah! So it was a 15-minute drive. Supposedly, my mom got there in 5 minutes. And she jumps out of the car. All she's doing is, ah! And the neighbors are like, what? It's #1! And we have a neighbor across the street who's hard of hearing, and she's like, what? I mean, she runs across the street, the car turns the corner. I'm surprised they didn't hit her, because she's like, and she goes and tells her, the neighbor's screaming, then the other neighbors are like, what's going on? It's #1! And all of a sudden you hear people all along the street just like, yeah! One neighbor told me, you did that shit, girl! Perfect way to celebrate.
No, that's amazing. But see, now everyone else is clearly obsessed with your mom too. I sold her on everything.
I almost brought her.
What?
Here's the thing. She found out how cold it was going to be. She does not go cold weather.
Oh, so this was on her end.
This was not on me. This was on her. She was like, because last year, it was like October I came.
Right.
And she came with me, and like when we got out of the cab, it was very windy, because you know, with the buildings and everything, sometimes the wind is, and that wind hit her, she's like, shoot! And she almost got back in the car. So she's like, nah, girl, I'll go back when it's warm.
Okay, well, I look forward to hanging out with her this summer.
Oh, she wants to meet you so bad. She read your book, and she's so mad at you.
I have to ask the first one or the second?
The first one.
Okay, right, okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have to ask her both.
She's like, if I see him, in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Speaking of second books, do you want to touch a little bit about what's coming next for you, or are you still kind of figuring it out?
I think I can say a little bit.
Looking at your publisher.
Yeah, I'm looking.
You got a thumbs up. Put down the player.
Okay. The second book does not have a title yet, but it's not a sequel. I call it a spinoff. It's set in the same neighborhood as The Hate U Give. It takes place afterwards, and it is about a 16-year-old girl who finds her voice through hip hop. So I call it my ode to hip hop. And in some ways, I look at it almost as a feminist take on hip hop, because I'm so tired of guys getting all the dang on attention. So I got this badass girl who can rap her ass off, and I'm excited about it. But it's also exploring poverty, because when we think poverty, a lot of us, we think, homeless or something like that. That's not the case. I know kids that I grew up with, they were poor as hell, but they always had brand new Jordans. Yeah. And you wonder how. Well, I'm exploring that. So I'm exploring how so many of young people are now graduating from college and can't get jobs. And it's even harder for black kids who are graduating college. And black women especially is hard. So the numbers show it. So I'm exploring a lot of that, and I'm excited about it. I got to work on the first draft.
Well, we're all excited.
Thank you.
We're going to shift to some fun questions, and then we're going to do our quick Beyonce business. And then I'm going to take some questions from you guys. So, all right, so fun question. All right. If you could use one emoji for the All Lives Matter crew, which would it be? There's a middle finger for those who didn't see.
I like how you keep pointing out my short. Oh,
The
yeah.
store's back.
Little fingers up.
Yeah.
Put them hands high.
What Beyonce lyric would you use for All Lives Matter?
Boy, bye.
You're a big Sims player. What's the wildest thing you've ever done to your Sims character?
Ooh. Okay, so there are like these things called mods for The Sims, and you can like change the way the game would normally behave. So I once had this Sim, and I installed this mod for like fertility. And I wanted it to be a surprise how many babies she was gonna have. So I never cheated to find out. So you know how Sims, when they're about to go in the labor, they're like, woo! So here comes one baby. Yay! 2, okay. 3, 4, 5, shit. 6, oh hell. 7, what the hell? 8, holy crap. She had 8 babies with a 2-bedroom house. So I feel so bad that I cheated and gave her like $1 million.
So your title's inspiration came from Tupac's tattoo, Thug Life. If you could get a tattoo, what would it be?
Thug Life.
Oh.
Seriously, Nikki Giovanni has it on her arm. Like, that's one of my heroes. And she has it on her arm. Yeah, she has it.
She found some ink on her hand.
Yeah, she has it like right here on her arm, and she'll explain it to anybody. So if I was as bold enough and I didn't have a mom who would look at me crazy, I would definitely get Thug Life put over. Yeah.
Cool. And last fun question. Hogwarts house for you and Star.
Ooh, okay. I am a Raven with Slytherin ambitions.
Wait, so Raven? What's the hybrid house for that?
Slytherin.
But if you're most aligned with Ravenclaw first, and then you break away. Okay. Don't be lost for a while, okay? Noted. And then Star?
Star, Gryffindor.
Oh, yeah, why do you even ask?
Yeah, she would get Harry or run for his money. Seriously, she would.
Okay, now for the Beyonce thing. So some context. There have been, Angie and I, we often swap like Beyonce gifts online. I'll often be at a bar at 3 a.m. and Beyonce will come on and I'm like banging out to it, and then I will send her a text.
Like, bitch, I wish you were here.
Maybe I don't say all that. Maybe don't out me in front of her. I look so disrespectful right now. Anyway, so I'm going to start a Beyonce lyric, and then Angie is going to complete it. So first up, formation. Okay, y'all haters.
Horny with that Illuminati mess. Paparazzi catch my fly in my cocky dress. I'm so, wait.
Cocky.
Fresh? Yes.
I'm so.
Reckless.
When I rock my.
I'm so possessive that I rock his rock necklaces. My daddy, Alabama. Mama, Louisiana. You mix that Negro with that
Two more.
I like my baby hair with baby hair.
Yeah, if you want to keep going.
Oh, I can.
Yeah, let's do something.
No, we're good.
Now. Do you want to go?
No, you're
okay.
good. We're going.
All right, cool. Which was, okay. Middle fingers up.
Put them hands high. Wave up in his face. Tell him, boy, bye. Boy, bye.
Perfect.
All right.
And then there's one more. I gotta find it on my phone.
You should know them.
I should know. Oh, okay. Oh no. We want to do freedom.
Oh.
Do you want to do the rap?
I just know part of it.
Okay.
10 Hail Marys, I meditate for practice. Channel 9 News tell me I'm moving backwards. 8 blacks left, death is around the corner. 7 misleading statements by my persona. 6 headlights waving in my direction. 50 asking me what's in my possession. Yeah, that's all I know.
All right, and now questions from you guys. Yes.
Alright, so I love your cover and I wanted to know what was your first impression of it, and I just noticed the back, which I absolutely
Okay.
I'm
going to call her out. She's actually here. Deborah Cartwright did the artwork. The question was, what was my reaction when I saw it?
Saw the cover.
Yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I've been a big fan of her work for like forever now. And when I saw it and I saw this black girl in her naturalness, with her sneakers and her natural hair, I was like, hell yeah, you know. So I love it. And I love the back. I don't think like, a lot of people have told me, oh, I didn't realize the back. There's Khalil on the back. Thank you, tall person. So, yeah, and I love it. So, between her and Jenna, is she here? I can't see. I'm sorry.
Are you short like me?
Maybe not.
Is she here?
Oh,
okay.
Oh,
Well,
sorry, Jenna.
between the two of them, they gave me the cover of my dreams, so I am forever grateful. So thank you.
Silly. Sorry.
First of all, you are fabulous.
Thank you. That crown is fabulous.
Close. I am a huge advocate for diversity in YA. I'm a Puerto Rican girl that never ever read a novel with a Hispanic protagonist before. And I admire so much about the hate you give is that Star is reaching out to people like her. Was that your intention in making her a black girl that had this awesome way of talking and the slang is amazing? Like, I love the slang in the novel. Like, I talk that way too. I was like, yes, girl.
I was careful because I didn't want to use too much slang because you say lit right now and you hear it be outdated. You know, I love lit though. I hope it doesn't happen. But with Star especially, I wanted to show that there's no one way to sound black. That was church girl. That's the right when somebody's giving a testimony. So I wanted to show that there's no one way to sound black. Because I recently had yesterday a young lady in Philadelphia came up to me and she was like, well, my issue has kind of been the opposite of Star. I try to sound black so my black friends will accept me so they won't say I'm talking white. And I just told her, I said, there's no definition to blackness. However you sound, however you talk is fine. So when I wrote this character of Star, I wanted to show her code switching, but I also wanted to have a character like Carlos who doesn't use slang. I wanted to have Maverick who does. You know, and it's sometimes small stuff like Carlos says, all right, Maverick says, I. That's the difference, but it doesn't take away from who they are. So it was important for me to even have Star use slang, and sometimes she doesn't. And I didn't want either way to sound wrong. I didn't want you to look at it and say, oh, the way she's talking at school is wrong. That's not black. Or the way she's talking at home is wrong. That's too black. I didn't want that. So I wanted to show this girl who went back and forth between the two because so many of us do.
Yeah.
Question? Yes.
So I know you're like still the planning stages of the second novel, but because it's been all that takes place in the same neighborhood, are you planning on having any crossover characters, or is it completely separate?
Do I plan on having any crossover characters in the second book? I absolutely do. Actually, the main character of the second book makes a very brief appearance at the end of The Hate You Give. Her name is Bree. So if you look through and you'll see Bree. Her uncle is the gangbanger goon with the ponytail. That's her uncle. And so he's a major character in the second book. So, and because I'm writing about a rapper, I feel like I have to have Chris, Mr. Beatmaker, in there at some point. You know, give him his break. Give him his shot. So.
Question? Anyone in the back that I may be missing? Not yet? Okay. Alex, Gino, what's up?
All right. If you were a cake, what kind of cake would you be?
If you were a cake, what cake would you be? Angie Thomas.
Caramel. Do you guys have that?
Yeah.
Do we have
Okay, caramel cake is a southern thing. That's why I went with that. It's literally like the cake tastes like caramel and the frosting is like tastes like caramel.
You have a thumbs up from.
Yeah, Brooks like he's like yes. So I would definitely be caramel cake. So
So.
It's a great question. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. Hi.
You explained how hip hop and music was a big influence on you, and unfortunately, I'm one of the heathens that has not read the book yet.
Get on that.
What are you doing with your life?
But I'm just wondering, does music also have a big influence on Star's life and how she goes through the events in the book?
Oh yeah, there are quite a few songs mentioned. My apologies to my publisher because they had to get clearance on some stuff. Poor Donna Bray. But no, it definitely plays a role. I mean, simple stuff like the Fresh Prince theme song. Like that's how her boyfriend makes her smile. Yeah. The way he hooked her was that he told her the first Seinfeld was the best Seinfeld. I mean, Matt told me that. Yes. But no, music though, like there's a lot of mentions of Tupac and Marvin Gaye and Kendrick Lamar and Beyonce because Stark thinks she's related to her. Music definitely plays a role, and it plays a role for me as I write. So I couldn't help but put some songs in there. Sorry, Donna.
You had a question?
Okay, so I always ask this question because I think it's a really fun one.
Oh, I know. Okay.
I always ask it. Okay, so imagine that it's the apocalypse. What 5 fictional characters in books, movies, or TV, not from your book, would you have on your dream team?
Okay.
For
Dream team.
For those who didn't hear, it's for Apocalypse Dream Team. Which 5 fictional characters would Angie recruit who are not in her own book?
Ooh, let me think. Dumbledore. We need somebody smart. And if we have to sacrifice somebody, let's go with the old guy. He would do it though, let's be honest. Dumbledore would throw his life down. Like Dumbledore would like,
Spoiler. 10 years later, spoiler. Alright, so we have Dumbledore to be disposed of.
From a movie. Movie. I'm trying to think. Ooh, this is a good question.
It's a really good question. Everyone always gets stumped.
Yeah. Okay. Movie. Doughboy from Boys in the Hood. Ice Cube's character. For those who've seen it. Like, he was like this dude who was down for whatever. So I need somebody on my team that's down for whatever. He was captain somebody without even thinking about it. Let's put Doughboy in there. So Dumbledore and Doughboy. Oh my God. Okay, I want to get somebody from maybe a TV show. Who was that?
Rick Grimes. The Walking Dead show.
It's obvious. Getting a Walking Dead guy in it?
I don't even watch that. I know I'm showing. No, I'd get Cookie from Empire.
Yes!
I would get Cookie from Empire because Cookie would like if there were zombies, Cookie would like if you don't get my damn way. I get Cookie from. Oh my God, this is the craziest team. Dumbledore, Doughboy, Cookie.
I mean, I don't know if you even need anymore. But,
Let's see. Okay, you said books, TV shows.
any form of media, I guess. Yeah.
Any? Okay.
Picture book, if you want.
Picture book.
Eloise up in here.
Pick a video game character.
Video game character?
Oh, your Sims?
I would make the most badass sim ever, and throw them in there. And I know I'm gonna regret this later. I'm trying to think because when you have questions like this, you're always later like, dang, why didn't I bring that person?
LeBron. Michael Jackson, so you think zombie dance.
He's real.
No, Michael was, let's just be honest, I love Michael, but Michael was very sensitive, and if zombies came with Michael said, oh, no!
I'm so happy this is being filmed.
Okay, somebody throw a TV show on.
LeBron.
I don't know, because LeBron, have you seen how LeBron flops? Okay, here's the problem with that. LeBron, like there was a few weeks ago, there was a game, somebody kind of pushed him, he just fell out like that. I can't have that on my team.
Luke Cage.
Oh, yeah.
Insecure. What's her name?
The main
everyone's saying it, we're like, what's her name?
Yeah, I think Issa.
Issa, yeah,
Yeah,
she's dope.
Issa, she's dope. So I think between us, the two of us with our black girl magic, and then Cookie with hers, and then Dumbledore and Dumbledore, I think we
Dumbledore's sacrifice is still my favorite thing. Question, we have time for maybe a couple more. Yes.
What is your stance on Oreos?
Ooh.
Fantastic question, Angie.
I know. This is golden Oreo territory. Don't come with anything else.
Yeah.
And tell Becky Albertalli we said it.
Okay, quick poll.
No, don't do it because they're going to betray us.
Well, I'm going to not sign it later. Okay, raise your hand if you have a preference for classic Oreos versus golden Oreos.
Golden.
Okay, if you're team classic. Team classic.
Get out.
Team golden. Okay, golden. That wasn't bad.
Yeah, we have a preference.
Great question. Hello.
have power. I'll abuse
We are going to take the next question now, guys. Sorry, 1 second.
For something actually better.
Hi. First of all, thank you for bringing back the questions of Blair so many. And my question is, if you had a day to spend time with your fictional characters in the T.H.U.G, what would you do with them? Like, where would you go? Like, what badass adventures would you go on?
Ooh, like one character or all of them?
Take all.
Ooh, all of them. We need a big
Thank you,
bus.
Miss
Mr. Lewis would be complaining, girl, you're driving too fast. But if I could spend the day with them, I would take all of them out of Garden Heights. The ones that live there. And then the ones that don't live there, I would take them to Garden Heights. So everybody that lives in Garden Heights, get on the bus. We're going to like the theme park or something. Especially like Devontae, because I want him to see something other than his neighborhood and see more to the world. I'd probably put him on a plane and send him somewhere so he could see like London or something. You know, he may complain about the food, but he'd go. And I would take Haley to Garden Heights, and I'd leave her there for 48 hours. With no resources, not even cell phone. Yeah, so, but no, and with Star, because that girl has gone through so much, I would ask Donna for a big check so I could take her to buy her some Jordans. Because she needs, like, some retail therapy. Like how I said, I'd ask Donna for
Thumbs up, all right. Sold. Question? Okay. All right, last one. Anyone in the back that we did not see?
Ooh.
Yes. Hi.
Yeah, so one of my favorite parts of the book was how much you talked about the Panthers and other parts of Black history that I feel like I didn't learn in school at least. So I was wondering if that was intentional on your part and like how you decided what to include.
Oh, absolutely. The Black Panthers were heroes to me growing up. And I grew up in this country knowing that anytime someone spoke out for me as a black person, by the majority, they were deemed the antagonists in the narrative. The Panthers were made to look like terrorists. You know, right now there are efforts to try to make Black Lives Matter into a terrorist organization. And knowing that, but it made me rebellious in a way because I looked at the Panthers as heroes, you know, knowing that if it wasn't for them, there probably wouldn't be the free breakfast program in school. You know, that's left out of history. And I wanted to touch on that because so often I knew that my book, first of all, I knew my book would go beyond black kids in the hood. And I wanted to show people who may not have a glimpse into that history. I wanted to give them the positive spin on it, you know. I wanted to show them why we see them as heroes. So it was definitely intentional and important to me.
Thank you all so much for coming today.